Hi, I'm hungry, but I'm also Doug. Hello, and welcome to the fourth devlog. For we got another year. It's been a very long one, but it's another year. So today we're gonna be talking a little bit more about the art, a little bit about the animation of the art, but more so the art than anything else. And on top of that, I'm also gonna be talking about the backgrounds, which is also part of the art, not the bit that everyone is gonna be focusing on, but it's an important bit altogether. So let's get on to it, shall we? First, I'm going to change my view to this one here, where you can see I have a drawing of Rob. It's like full body. It's the Rob you see in the game itself, except that you don't see like the lower half of his body, so you pretty much just see this. But yeah, he has hooves. Good news. If you ever decided to go and explore the game folder with the files, you would find this same picture there, or some pictures are like this. Or you could pretty much build up your own because it's all in bits and pieces. But it's pretty much Rob and the clothes, the base clothes in this case. And then on top of that, there's the whole face with the expressions and such. And like I was saying last week in that whole coding, debugging animation thing, the animation is super simple. It could not be simpler than this. And this is actually not the correct file with the animation. This is it. So the animation is ridiculously simple. Um, Previously, I had shown you how the mouth animation works, where we get from mouth 1, and then we have several options, which is like mouth 2, and then back to 1, or mouth 2, 3, 2, back to 1, or 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, back to 1, or just mouth 3 and then back to 1. And I'm showing here right now in Clip Studio Paint, the program I use to draw and illustrate and preview animations, how it would go pretty much. So here we have a folder for the mouth, and as you can see, we have mouth 1, 2, and 3, all the states of the mouth. And we also have it for the eyes. So eyes 1, eyes 2, and eyes 3. 1 is the default state, which is for the eyes is fully open and for the mouth is fully closed. 2 is the halfway point, and then 3 is the endway point. So for the eyes is fully closed, for the mouth is fully open. I prefer to just name them 1 to 3 and just leave it at that and rename eye open, eye close, eye semi closed, because whenever you're having a bunch of files, it's easier to just organize them by the shortest name possible. So mouth 1, mouth 2, mouth 3 is much simpler than going mouth open, mouth half open, and mouth closed, because then whatever file organizer system you're using is going to rename it alphabetically, and then it's going to take forever to find things. If you just name 1, 2, 3, and you know what 1, 2, 3 means for the mouth and for the eyes, then you're golden. Second thing, the animation, like I said, is pretty simple. The only thing that moves is the eyes and the mouth. So here we have the animation going from 1, which is mouth closed, to 2, which is semi-open, then to 3, then back to 2, then back to 1, then it goes directly to 3, then back to 1, then to 2, then to 1, then 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 1 for the mouth. And then for the eyes, it just goes straight from 1 to 3, and then back to 2, then to 1, and then it goes, and then here at the end of the animation it goes to 3, and then 2, and I didn't bother putting a 1 here because it's going to loop back to the first frame in which it's already a 1. So I don't need to put an extra frame. It changes nothing, it's just creating it here in Clip Studio to preview the animation helps make things easier, except that Clip Studio, whenever it's previewing animation, it'll really downsample your animation, so it'll look a little bit like this. It's very pixelated, but you can get a very good sense of, does it work? Is it good? Does it feel natural? Does it feel wrong? Because a lot of times I'll be drawing the animation, and I don't have that good a way of previewing how it's going to look until it's sketched. So I'm not gonna go ahead and just like fully do the whole face and stuff. I'm going to make a sketch first for the animation. So just lines, nothing else, just lines, no color, no nothing. And then I'll do the sketch, animate the sketches, see how it looks, how it feels. If I need to change something, then I'll go and change the sketch and replay the animation and see if it works. And then if it does work indeed, I can go ahead and finish up the whole drawing, put in the line art, the colors, the shading, and animating shadows is murder, but I did it, so hooray, I guess. Except I didn't animate the shadows like when the mouth is moving. I didn't animate them on the neck like I do for those animated icons I was doing a while ago, because everything is in a different layer, and doing this would be absolutely ludicrous unless I cut out a very big portion of the character. I did it in the least effective way, but the most effective in the sense of saving space, as in hard disk drive space. Because this is meant to be like a visual novel, a small game. The less space I waste on assets, the better for everyone. For me to upload, for you guys to download, it's best if I can reduce the amount of data in the pixels to animate it properly. If I wanted to do a better animation, I would, um, instead of animating just like the bottom part of the mouth, I would animate like the whole, like from the nose all the way up to the clavicle. I would cut all of this out and animate that. That also kind of screws everything up a little bit because of clothing. If I change the clothing, everything just goes very awry very fast. So this is the way in which I can animate everything with the least amount of work, least amount of trouble. It does limit my options a little bit, but it's for the best. So as you can see, this is the default animation for the characters, and then I put it up in RampI, and using code I animated all of it. Uh, and then as you can see, it takes a little bit of work to go and draw the character, the base, then draw every single frame of the eyes, 1, 2, and 3, draw the mouth, 1, 2, and 3, and then finish it all up, and then put it up out there in the world. It takes some time, and it gets even worse when, much like me, you decide that, hey, let's change the pose, the expression. So we have Rob when he's happy, when he's tired, when he's feeling silly. This was a previous animation. I didn't like how it looked, so I just discarded it and went with something else entirely. So I went with this for silly. Before it was like cocky, but then I kind of combined them into one silly slash cocky. Um, kind of fits the bill for him. Then a serious expression, an angry expression, and the sad expression, which is different from tired, but they look kind of the same. And then I had forgotten completely, and then later on I added a surprise expression. I have a bunch of expressions for Rob, and originally I had tried to be like, how does it look if I use like regular shading, which is easier to animate, which is just this, like hard shadows. So as you can see here in the shirt, the shading is very different. It's like hard edges everywhere. On the face as well. The colors are a little bit also kind of dull, but it's much simpler to draw and illustrate and animate. And I thought, okay, but how about the way that I've been shading my comics and my works for a decade now, which is this. And I thought, looks better, I think. It's a tiny little bit extra amount of work, but I think it compensates to give it a very different style from other visual novels. And then, if you open up the folder for the expression, then here we will see that there's like this folder just for the mind states, which is intuition and reason, so red and blue. As you can see, I have taken some extra care to draw them in like places that don't quite overlap as much, and both of them are like highlighted to one side or the other. the top of the head they kind of share the same space, but on the sides, each uh, each intuition thing has its own side. For some reason, I also took care not to put any highlights around the eyes because they are animated, and around the mouth. Although Rob doesn't speaks when the intuition or the reason is talking, so there's no reason to avoid putting the highlights around the mouth. But you never know. It's better to future-proof these kinds of things than to find out later on that, oh no, it doesn't work for some reason. So I did it this way. The next thing we have here is a folder for Rob the base body. Not much to see, alas. And I don't know why I did it this way. Like I said, there's no point for a base folder with Rob and then different layers for each clothing. I could just have clothing as a layer of its own, or rather style, as I put in the code, and then just have a style that says nude, and then it shows this, or nude, quote unquote, show more. It would be much simpler to just have it as styles. I would save up on one layer, but in the end, it doesn't change us that much. It would just make the code a little bit smaller. Next up, we have the folder for the clothing, which is casual, and then the work, in which nothing changes except that now he has an apron. But still, I had it. Why not? And on top of that, we have a folder with three folders inside of each, which is for the eyes. So we have eyes 1, eyes 2, and eyes 3. And then we have a folder for the mouth, like guys, once again, mouth 1, mouth 2, mouth 3 for closed, semi-open, and fully open. And if I remove the mouth and the eyes, this is what the base of Rob looks like. Just this little bit here to kind of ensure that when, no matter which mouth is being displayed, that there's no weird bits going on. And there's just a blank whatever there, a crevice, I guess, for the eyes. Looks a little bit creepy without all of the folders, but it's what it is. It's one of the easiest way to animate the character. So we have this folder for we have a folder for each expression, and then again each expression has their own folders on the inside with the eyes, the mouth, and all of them going through 1, 2, and 3 for each state of the drawing itself. And then at first I had done only the neutral expression, which is why it has like the legs all together. And then I realized that I don't need to draw the whole body because it's not gonna even show up. So I decided, you know what, let's just cut the legs. So every other expression doesn't have legs because I don't need to. Originally, I was thinking of having the pictures much smaller and showing like the full body, but then I realized that there's no important information visually being displayed from the waist down, so I can just discard those altogether. I'm still not discarding because we do show a little bit of the waist down, but not full all the way down to the feet. We don't need that. And also, it saves on a lot of work on my part. And then I had all of these folders for each expression each character does, and then I had a list here of what all the expressions should be, like a checklist that I would go drawing each character and checking out the expressions. Groan/cringe was an expression I thought of adding, but the amount of times I would use it throughout the whole game didn't justify it. Like I could just use the silly or the tired, angry. Angry, I think fits it a little bit better whenever Rob is meant to have a groan or cringe, or maybe surprised that is also an expression that had way more use than the groan/cringe expression. And that's a choice I had to make of I can't make every single expression for every single character because When reading back through the script, I realized I don't use all of the expressions for every character at every moment. So, I had this expression chart of which characters use which expressions. I did this throughout the whole development just to ensure that I knew what I didn't need to do. So as you can see that Jane, she does not have a cocky slash silly slash snarky expression. Jimmy Jones does not have a sad or happy expression. Edward has none. He just has the neutral and the serious. Matthew has most of them, except for the silly one. Coach Levesque only has neutral, serious, and angry. And Carl doesn't have the angry or the silly. Lee has every single one of them. And then, depending on the character, as I wrote the whole script, I looked back through it and saw, okay, this character never uses this expression. I don't need to draw it right away. I might draw them in the future if the script at any point warrants it. But for now, there's no need to draw every single one of them. And knowing how to cut those things is how I'm able to put this thing out faster, because animating these things takes a long time and it's a lot of work. So doing the least work possible to ensure that I have a thing that is ready to be released was the way to go. You can see also I put 2 extra characters in here, Claude, Gagne, and Theo. Characters that I had planned to show up, but I never had them in the game itself. Um, because of where I decided that episode 1 ends. These characters kind of were meant to show up a little bit later. Theo is Matthew's father, like I said a couple devlogs ago, where more or less Theo is meant to show up in the story, so you can look up for that. And Claude Gagne is meant to be Matthew's rival in the hockey team. It was supposed to show up like randomly throughout the episode or whenever Rob and Jane are encountering Matthew, but in the end, I didn't feel like there was any important or interesting scenes I could write that includes this character. Right at the beginning, at least, I thought maybe that's something better left for the future. So new characters should be introduced. Oh, that's always good. In any case, I had this chart of characters and such, and I kept checkmarking things as I went through all of it, and it just went on. Originally, when I released before I released the full game, I kind of went on releasing little prototypes, and the prototypes were not animated, or if there were, it was just a sketch, and some poses, they didn't even have those poses, was just like, this is the character, let's just go. Uh, I think the neutral pose was animated, but not fully colored, and the other poses were just the pose. There was no animation because I was just testing out the system, and I just wanted to put out the game with the script to see how people would react to the whole story before I went back and changed some things. In fact, there were things in the script that needed changing. The fact that all throughout the week you talk with Colin Lee about what's been going on, and then in the last day, Friday, they kind of asked Rob like, how's it going? What are things? And then whenever Rob told them about the things with Matthew and this and that, they were like surprised as if they were hearing this for the first time, but they weren't. In any of the timelines, no matter what choices you make, they ended up hearing about it no matter what. So I think I'm not even sure anymore. But I wrote them as if they didn't, as they had no idea what was going on, and that was not the case. I I just got so confused with all of the branching options that I completely forgot about that and wrote canonically that the characters had no idea that Rob had talked to them, but he had. So I had to go back and change that and change the way. Because this is one decision I didn't want to carry on forwards, which is Rob never having told them about Matthew, about the whole problem with the Jorks. having this branching path of he told them or he didn't tell them, and carrying that on forwards had because Rob's friends are such an integral part of the plot and the narrative for Rob's narrative. It was just something I didn't want to write two versions for every time. I said, no, you know what? Rob is going to tell them bits of it, and that'll be it. So I had to go back and redact the whole part of the script, rewrite it, and then put it back out after some proofreading and this and that. But back to the animation, like I said, I had ideas and I started sketching the animation and putting it on the prototype, and I had more ideas for the animation. One of the ideas was back to some of my inspirations, like I said previously. Ace Attorney was a very big inspiration of how characters are on the sides facing one another instead of just being the center of the screen facing you, the reader. Instead of that, I wanted to have the characters side by side because Rob is a character on his own, he has his own personality. It would make sense for him to show up in the screen. Um, Another inspiration was for the whole animation even was the Hotel Dusk games. I wanted to do an animation kind of like that, of every time a character changes expression, they do an opening animation and then they stop and then they just kind of keep blinking and moving their mouths. But every time they changed animations, they would have a little intro to the animation before they go to the still pose, and then they just all further movement it just happens in the still pose. That would have been cool. Problem, that would take forever to do because animating even those 3 frames for the eyes and the mouth takes a lot of time for all the expressions. And to do this plus an introduction to the expression, that would take forever. I even sketched a first animation for Rob, but then after sketching it, I realized no, it will take too long. I don't want to do this. This is not viable. If I was doing this in 3D, it would be viable, but in 2D, it's no way how it is. So in here we have I don't know exactly what animation it would be, but it's just Rob changing expressions from whatever it was before to this. He just kind of leans back, finger points at the person, and then he starts talking, moving his mouth or blinking his eyes. But whenever he gets into this expression, there would be this introduction. So here it is. He just points, turns his head away a little bit, and then just stands there. And at the end, that's how he would be for the rest of the conversation, just moving his mouth and eyes. But then whenever he went to another expression, he would do the introduction movement to this animation. This is problematic also because I don't know how to code it in a simple, an easy way. So it would just be too problematic, just too a lot of work would need to go into this to make it work. So I just canned this idea right at the beginning. Never went forwards with this. So I made charts for all of the expressions, and then I just started on drawing. Every single character, has the same structure of having a folder with all of the expressions. Inside each expression, there's a folder layer for the base, then for the casual clothes, then for the mouth and the eyes. And Rob, because he's the protagonist, also has a layer for the mind, the intuition, mind reasoning. But that's how it is. Here I showed already the expression, and going a little bit further back, I cannot draw horses by memory. Like any time of the week, I can just go and from memory draw a canine or a feline of most species and types. But horses is something that I just don't have like internalized how to draw a horse because I don't draw them that oftenly. And that was a problem with Rob because hey, my protagonist is a horse. How do I draw horses? So I started just doing a lot of sketches, a lot of trial and error to see like how do I draw a horse. And one of the biggest problems I had with horses is that how do I draw them in a way like 3/4 view that shows both of the eyes? Because In theory, horses have like the bridge of the nose. There, it's very pronounced in a way that you would not be able to see the other eyes. Even if they're looking at you forwards, you wouldn't be able to see both of the eyes like facing forwards. They would be facing the sides because that's how horses, the animal, work. But I had to like change it for illustration to make him more likable and more like you know make him more of a character. I had to look at some animation solutions. I started referencing a lot of horses in animation. The horse from Tangled, some horses from the Zootopia mobile game, just all kinds of drawn horses, cartoon horses everywhere. I just started looking like crazy. And I started doing a lot of sketches as well. So at first I was thinking, do I go with like a more squarey shape for the head, the face and everything, or more rounded? What about the hair? Do I do short hair, long hair? In the Golden Week ending, when we see Rob, he has short hair, I believe. Actually, let me open up the page and double check. I believe that Rob, in the end of the Golden Week, he has um, longish hair, much like he is in the um, here in the visual novel. Not entirely sure that's the case or not. No, no, not at all. He has at the end of the Golden Week, Rob has uh short hair. So that's how I decided to go with it. Like Rob is going to have short hair or easy. I'm not entirely sure. So I decided to bring it back. I also changed a little bit like the marking on his muzzle, nose, whichever. Uh Changed it a little bit to I don't know, just make something a little bit more interesting visually. And I did a lot of sketches for this boy. Eventually, I also had to learn how to draw him on the side whenever you're seeing him in the visual novel. So I pretty much ended up with this, which was a prototype for the final version. As you can see, it's very similar. The pose is the same, but the face uh, has seen some changes. As you can see here, I had his eyes a little bit narrower, kind of a little bit tired as well. And here the muzzle was like the whole face was smaller, so I made it bigger, more pronounced, feels more horse-like here. I think than here. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know how to draw horses. What can I do? Later on, I had a whole another file. Every time I had the opportunity, I would just draw Rob, just draw him again and again to see what Rob feels like. Maybe on a Monday I feel like drawing Rob this way. Maybe on the Tuesday I feel like drawing Rob completely different. I had to keep drawing him again and again to get a sense for this boy. And then I also drew the rest of the cast just to sketch it out and see how it feels. So here we have Rob, Jimmy Jones. I had a sketch for him. Akaius. I also had a sketch for him. Uh, for Leland as well. Didn't even need to. Leland's like a canine. I can draw canines with my eyes closed. I redrew Matthew just to get a sense for him because I have not drawn Matthew in like hadn't drawn Matthew in 3 or 4 years when I finished this, so it had been a long time. Same thing with Jane, hadn't drawn her in forever. Scott's like, hadn't been that long, but still, it was always good to catch back um, on those boys and girls. And then I kept sketching Rob. So here we have another sketch of like how he would look in the visual novel. So looking a little bit to the side, had some more sketches going on with him. I tried to change the sizes back and forth a little bit as I went through it. Animate the mouth a little bit, see how it would feel. Draw him in different poses and expressions. And originally the work attire would have him with the notepad and the pen, but then I realized that doesn't make all that sense, especially with how I decided to go with the animation. The expressions in which not just the face changes, the whole body expression changes, so had to go a different way. And then I also sketched the other characters. For Caius and Leland, it was easier. Like the very first sketch already landed where I wanted it, so I like perfect, great, amazing. Let's go with this. I just had then to go and get the sizes figured out because Leland is meant to be very tall and Caius is meant to be shorter. And also before I landed on those final designs, I had made a very even firster sketch of the characters for a first prototype I posted forever ago on Patreon with Rob, Akayas, and Lee, and it was kind of weird because they were not looking at like facing forwards, looking at one another. They were facing towards the camera, or rather facing forwards, but looking at the camera. So all of them kind of felt a little bit weird, but I gave it a test. I also animated this to test the code inside the RampI to see if it was viable to keep on with this formula. Eventually, I figured everything out. I also did this whole kind of summoning circle here in the, or summoning lines here in the background, which is a three-quarters ruler, in which I kind of just have a perspective rulers forming to draw a square, like yeah, a square, a cube of sort, a long cube, whatever the name of that is. I forget. I don't know rather in English. In any case, I drew this cube here and decided this is going to be the line at which the feet are going to fall into. This is the waistline, this is the shoulders, and this is the head. For every character, I always draw them in these proportions. Or this is the Rob's proportions at least. And then I put Rob in there. And as you can see, the feet line up with this line. This is the waistline, the shoulder line, and the head line. Head area even. And then after drawing Rob in this perspective ruler, I knew that every other character that I draw using the same perspective ruler, all of them are gonna be facing and looking and feeling the same way. So it's not like one character is facing forwards, the other is facing a little bit more to the side, a little is like completely to the other side. I wanted all characters to have this three-quarters facing perspective going on. So having this ruler, this guideline in the back, really helped. So I did that with Rob, I did that with Cal as well, except that in the neutral position looks a little bit better. I think I also had like some sketches going on here. Yeah, the base sketch I did previously for another layer. Some color swatches here to draw every single expression. Took some time, but in the end, call in the same three-quarters guide slash ruler. Then same thing for Lee. And then you can see also that Lee, even though he doesn't quite respect the the waistline and the shoulder lines, if I were to get Lee and shrink him a little bit, without crashing the software, of course, he would kind of fit in there. So the shoulders, the head, and the waist would be all in the correct position. It's just a matter of drawing the character there and then shrinking or elongating them if they are meant to be taller or shorter, but that I do mostly by eye, using Rob as a reference. And once again, the list of expressions. In short, these were the characters for We Got Another Year. I did draw all of them. Um, Took me forever to do this. And then I just kept drawing a lot of things, and pretty much for the whole introduction of the game, I had them drawn as sketches. So every character was just like this black and white sketch in there, just for me to test things out before I went forward with the final version, which they're colored and everything else. So some of them didn't even have animation until the very end of the game. And yeah, doing them in black and white like this really helps to get a feeling for the character in the game before deciding like should I change their looks, appearances, expressions, and so and so and so. The first prototype of the game also had this black and white gray tone gray tone uh, illustrations for the backgrounds and every scene, every ending, and every such. That because then I could have the time to work on other things while people were playtesting the game for me. So yeah, this is the lineup of all the characters. Mm. Uh, Always helpful to have that going on. And also, lastly, I also have this um, prototype background for the introduction with Rob, Matthew, and Theodore in the back. I really like this one, and I like this sketch version more than the finished version, especially because of the background, the colors that it has, the positioning of the characters. I really like it, but this version here, even though it's more polished, I don't like it as much. I think it lost a lot of its charm from the simpler version with just Rob, Matthew, and Theodore. Go figure. In any case, back to the backgrounds, there's a bunch of them, and originally, this is a bit that really hacks me up. Originally, the backgrounds, they were all drawn in this black and white style, so I just plopped like a perspective ruler there by hand and just started just scrolling, sketching, getting a sense for what's the best perspective to look the particular scene from. I also had like a mental list of what places will this story take place in. Like, what are going to be the backgrounds, the areas that I need to draw, because I want to use the least amount of areas as possible. At some point, I had also thought of those transitions when Rob is going from place A to place B, to have just a black screen and a little bus just like moving on the bottom of the screen to show that there's some transition going. While Rob is doing some narrating of this is what happened, blah 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 blah. But that would be extra work as well, and I decided, nah, let's not do that. Let's just fade to black. It's much simpler. So this is the Night Owl, the version that is on that was on the prototypes, the one that I drew by hand, and then this is the final version, the one that is like actually drawn with an actual perspective ruler. And to really get to this version of the backgrounds, I had to cheat a little bit and use 3D. So using this as a reference, like, okay, I have an idea of what perspective I want to use and this and that, but I want to get from here to here. How do I do that? I'm gonna get this and construct the place in Blender. So this is a construction of the Night Owl Cafe in Blender, and this perspective here, as you can see, if you remember, is the same perspective as the ending of that one comic all of you guys like so much, called call it what you want, Pert Pert True. Yes, sorry, I'm trying to find the file to show it to you all. If it loads up, that is. So as you can see, I'm using the same perspective here because having the Night Owl Cafe modeled in Blender is super useful because at any time I want to use it, since it's a recurrent background in it's a recurrent location in my stories, and that's by design. Having that modeled in 3D is great. So I have taken this perspective here that I'm using the last panel here. It's pretty much this. I just got this perspective, took a snapshot, put in Clip Studio, and drew over that. But I have also here in Blender, as you can see, on the inside of the Night Owl Cafe, it's very super simply modeled. There's not a whole lot going on. All of the chairs are also just I just modeled one and copied and pasted all over the place. Same thing with the tables, everything. But I went and kind of got this perspective here of the Night Owl Cafe on Blender. Uh, I just put in some things here and there. I was trying to decide like maybe I'll color things and just take this render and use that in the game itself. But then I realized that the disparity between styles of the characters all being 2D and animated and the background being 3D and static, it would just feel weird and not that proficient with Blender to do crazy shading in which it looks kind of like a hand draw thing. There are ways of doing that, but I haven't spent enough time with Blender to figure out how to do that. So I decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just going to do the basic, just modeling it. Uh, oh yeah, it's not gonna show that because there's a roof. Silly little old me. If I go, oh god dang, dog dang it. Is there a roof? No, I have hidden the roof. I don't know why, but in any case, Blender's be hard, yo. Um, I just modeled the whole thing, snapshotted this, and after snapshotting this, I put it in Clip Studio, drew over it to get this version of the Night Owl Cafe. I don't like these finished versions as much as I like the black and white. I feel like the black and white draw by hand it has so much more charm and I think it looks better. Problem is, it's a sketch, and I could have sketches in a finished thing, so I did this. Not a fan, but I mean, it looks more polished. It looks better, but I prefer the black and white sketches, which is why with the ending I tried to draw uh this filter to kind of give it some color, but in the end it doesn't look all that great, which is why I went and drew it. But also there's a lot of empty space around it because drawing is hard, yo. It takes time. So every single environment in the game that I ended up using has a black and white sketch version that I did, and then I went back into Blender and modeled it. And then I used the model as a reference to draw the scenes themselves. So some of these things was easier to do, some of them was not as easy to do. Some of them took more time than the others. And I had also to go on the interwebs and find all kinds of references for some things, like there's a skate hockey rink, or the office. Like, what did an office look like in 2015? Office, quote unquote. And it's pretty void of like features. There's a lot more that could be going on here, like little objects here and there, some more furniture. It's pretty much just structure in this. The office is the only thing that feels full, but everything else is very bland, I think. However, it's what I could what I could do because, like I said, it takes time. Um, Especially the classrooms, because the classrooms are the where things get really fun. It's super simple. There's absolutely nothing going on here with the classrooms. I tried also to see if I could find some interesting way of rendering this, but in the end, the renders aren't all that wonderful. So I decided to just go with the the solid version, throw it into Clip Studio and draw all over it. So I did that with all of these backgrounds, but still, I went through the effort of 3D modeling all of these environments. It could be useful in the future in some way, shape, or form that I'm not fully aware of yet. But, you know, it's how I got around the hurdle hurdle of drawing an environment. The only environment that I did not 3D model for, I did not do a 3D model for, was the, what's it called again? Uh, I did the bedroom. Did I? Actually, I don't think I 3D modeled the bedroom. I think the bedroom I just had this black and white model, and then I decided to, because I think it's one of the first environments I finished, I polished and drew by hand. So I think I just decided, no, I'm going to figure it out with perspective rulers. So I put some rulers here and there and tried to draw it, but it's very distorted. The perspective is all wrong because perspective wise, this wardrobe is gigantic. Like the wardrobe is huge and the bed is super small, or everything's wrong. Perspective's all wrong here. Um, but it was the first environment I finished, both the night version and the light and the day version. And then I said, okay, I'm good now, so let's go with the next. There was also the campus. The campus I also drew this by hand, and then I decided, okay, let's finish it and revamp it. Then I did it using perspective rules and this and that. And then I realized this is going to take forever. How can I improve the way that I do this? That's when I thought maybe I'll 3D model this. Because the classroom, the night owl cafe, those just have way more detail going on. I need a fast way of doing that. So I 3D modeled them and revamped them. Um, the the night owl cafe is the only one that so far has really proved useful because I've been able to use it elsewhere. Uh, all of these scenarios, they are only useful here for the visual novel. Everything else is just, it exists. Um, and yeah, this is pretty much it for visual noveling around, dealing with art and such. Some things I think I could have done better now that I look back on it is with the character art. I feel like maybe I should have given it a little bit more thought on the expressions for some characters because I don't like some of Rob's expressions. I think they look a little bit weird. I feel like I could have researched the horses much more in depth before I went on with it because sometimes it doesn't feel that much like a horse to me. Um, but that's just me. A little bit critical when it comes to that. I'm not that comfortable drawing horses as I am drawing other characters, animals. That is. Um, for the backgrounds, I think I could have spent more time with them. But if you know me, you know backgrounds and I have a very long hate story together. I hate, absolutely abhor doing background, and I'll take whatever shortcuts I can take to not draw backgrounds. And another thing I maybe could have improved a little bit on was trying to come up with a more interesting style. Because like I've shown you all the way back in the beginning, there was that style for Rob with the hard shadows, hard edges, and that's much simpler to draw. But I've been in this comfort zone of shading like I've always shaded for so long that I didn't really think of doing it in any other way. I just did that and that's it. But I could have gone through and tried to do something different. Another thing that I could also have done that is very simple to do in technicality is to add just different lighting to the characters. Because if I do the simple shadows, like I showed, it doesn't look as as expressive shadow wise as the soft shadows that I do. But I could have gotten around of that by using some filters, some other shading techniques. Like this is a little bit more technical talk, but instead of just having a multiply layer to get shadows, they could have also an overlay layer to try and do some interesting lighting for if it's day, if it's nighttime. I feel like those changes here and there would really add a lot to the characters, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. The only problem is that I would need to have the shading layer there, like very well made, and exported it as a single layer for RampI, and in the live composite character on RampI script, say that that uses a particular layer effect when it's overlaid on top of this to get the same effect. It would make the game heavier because I did make a test at some point for how does this game runs on mobile or on the web version, and the performance is very bad because I'm using very huge, very big images and shrinking them down instead of just making the images in the right size. I'm shrinking them down. That consumes a lot of resources because I'm loading like 2000 by 3000 pixels images. They're very big. They're bigger than they have to be. Um, so performance wise, the whatever is loading the visual novel is going to suffer. Those are some things I could have improved on looking back at it, or other things I could have tried to make differently. But overall, it was an experiment. I like how it's going. I think I could have done better, but overall, I'm happy with how it's turned out. And now all that's left is making the rest of it and finishing off this project so I can start the next one. But speaking of ending projects and starting the next one, this is another bit for the devlog that is not so much into the. We got another year devlog, but for my, this general life update, I guess, which is that I feel very weird having these moments where, because for the past years even, I've had this schedule of every Friday I post a new page for the comic and just keep on going with that, doing all the other things I have to do on the side, and then using this time to work on the comic and posting it there. Not having that anymore feels weird. And also, I can't keep making devlogs to post on Fridays because I have run out of things to say. I have I have deconstructed the whole game in all of these four-ish hours of worth of devlogs. It takes a long time to make the game, but it doesn't take that long to explain what I'm doing exactly. The only devlog I can make now is just talking a little bit more about how to write the story, but there's not much to talk about, I'm afraid. Because I wrote the story forever ago and I didn't make notes along the way to, do a talk on that. So, what I'm thinking about doing to keep giving you guys updates and things, but not also have all of them be hour-long videos that you have to watch to get because there's no text version or anything. What I was thinking of doing is starting up a new comic, the next comic, and posting that while I work on the visual novel on the side. It's definitely going to impact the time it'll take for me to finish the visual novel, but I think it's the best way to keep producing content, putting it out there for you guys uh while working on the visual novel instead of just being like, okay, I don't have an update. Let's wait for however long it's going to be before the visual novel is done. The next episode, that is. So I'm thinking about starting up a new comic. There's some ideas in my mind. Previously, I had talked about the Cash and Dash, the Adventures of Cash and Dash, which if you read the Call Me Yours Part 2, you remember them. My idea was to start a new comic with those characters, Cash and Dash, the Lynx and the Fox. And in the same vein of like early 80s, 90s cartoons, kind of like SWAT Cats or the Thundercats, even though that's a little bit older, I think. Those morning cartoons that everyone loves and adores. I thought maybe I could write my own story with those characters and put it out there. And I kind of like that idea. But I also have been having another idea on the side, which is um, I don't remember when I did this because that was a weird comic when I did the What a Night to Be Cursed. That is just a very weird comic because the whole time that I was going through making that comic is just a blank in my memory. I have no idea why, but it's just I I finished that comic and the curse is to not remember anything about it. The whole period of my life is just void. I remember nothing about that. So the whole making that comic feels like a fever dream now. I don't remember making that comic. Um, I know that I did make it, but I don't remember like the sitting there going through it all. It's so weird. But I liked that comic. I liked the whole challenge of making like a story thing with novels and illustrations. It was fun. Uh, I don't think I'll be returning to that idea of novel with pictures, but I do want to return to writing a story in a fantasy world of like it's not modern like like my comics, and it's not romance, gay romance, slice of life stuff. Just doing like a fantasy fantastical adventure thing that I feel like that would be very fun to do as well. So that's my ideas for my next comic, which is just the SWAT Cat ripoff thing of with Cash and Dash, or this other comic with which is more like medieval fantasy, D&D vibes, Dungeons and Dragons. That is just fantasy adventure thing. I have had some ideas for writing those kinds of stories for a while. I just never really got around to illustrating one because I've always been occupied with something else. But those are my ideas, and I think it would be more interesting for all of you if I went doing that while working on the visual novel and work on those two things at the same time. That's so I can keep bringing weekly updates that aren't just hour-long videos. But that's it. That's all that's on my mind for today, and I hope that you guys enjoy listening to this nonsense. Um, Not much else to say, I don't think, other than well, it's been a whole month, quote unquote, of updates and things regarding the visual novel. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, I really don't know what else to say. So I guess this is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all the next time, whenever that is. Bye bye, everyone.